And she told him rather sternly that, yeah, the RCMP is racist. And you know how I know that? Because when I was at when I was at a protest in BC, protesting some pipeline, the RCMP arrested me, and they were really nice. And then I saw stories. No, it's stupid as that. And if I got treated really nice, and I've heard these stories about people being treated badly, then I know they're racist.
Let's go. All right. Hey! Welcome back to a Post Millennial podcast hosted by me. My name is Roberto Wakerl Cruz, sometimes called Bobby by this guy over here, this nice lad. He is the news correspondent at the Post Millennial. Last week, we did not have a name, and this week we do. And we gave a task to you, the viewers. We got a couple thousand views on the last one, which was pretty good. We're very happy with that, and we're happy that you're here again. And here are some of your suggestions very quickly. Some of them were better than others. For instance, 2 simps, 1 cup.
That's good. Almost.
I think that's not the best. Whoa, Canada, which is one that we had suggested as Whoa, Canada. But the viewers, much more not as optimistic about the state of our nation, prefer Whoa, Canada, as in like, woe is me, Canada. We're not going to go with that. It's a little sad.
We're trying to be light here, fellas. Come on.
Yeah, we're just a couple guys in party shirts, and we're here to party. Also, people said they liked Bobby and Nico. A couple people said Bobby and Nico was a fine name. We're not going to go with any of those because they're all not that great. The one we're going with is This Week in Canada. So welcome.
Yeah, I mean, it's a total just, I suppose, 2 fingers up at all of our viewers who tried their hardest to come up with names. They were all bad. And quite frankly, we've decided to take executive action, and we're going with This Week in Canada.
We're going with a very generic name that puts us in a box because we're going to inevitably talk about the United States. But the show is called This Week. The show is just called This Week, but we're in Canada, so it's This Week in Canada.
Comma, in Canada.
This Week in Canada with Bobby and Nico. So welcome. Thank you for coming on and viewing us once again. We're going to just dive right in, right?
Yeah. Can't wait. And I think the first topic of conversation, which we're all very excited by, was Trudeau's angry press conference today. In fact, it was so angry. I've never seen him that angry. So something definitely got under his skin. And Bobby, what do you reckon that was?
Okay, so here's the situation. I've watched this guy every day for 3 months. It's part of my job. I wake up in the morning. I set an alarm for 11 so that when I can wake up, I am greeted by the voice of the offspring of Pierre Trudeau and Margaret Trudeau. And this guy's got away with words, let me tell you. It's been one of the worst 3 months of my life. This guy, he's generally very pleasant, though. This is what we're going to discuss. He's usually in a good mood. He's usually very compassionate. He's very soft and loving, and he seduces you with his hair flips and his tone of confidence, even though it's all fake. But today, we saw a side of Trudeau that I don't think we've ever seen before. And it was today, this was the Thursday press conference where he was in a factory. I think it was a small business in Ottawa. And basically a little bit of a campaign stop. It
Pretty
looks like
good.
He's already getting those kind of gears in motion. And he was pissed, dude.
Yeah. And
So
we very rarely see, as you said, videos or footage of Trudeau being angry. There's one other incident that I can remember, which is when he went on like a US Netflix show. Do you remember that? Well, it was great because it started off really well, and he was asking him yes and no questions. And then, but it was really frivolous yes and no questions. It was like, what would you know, are you a dog guy or are you a cat guy? You know, that sort of thing. And then he threw a question. Will you stop selling arms to Saudi Arabia? Right in the middle of it. and you could tell that he didn't quite know how to react because it was like a comedy show. So he had to be funny, but he was also really pissed off. And what happened is that his face twitched, and one side was, you know, his casual, you know, nonchalant Trudeau, and the other side was, you know, this guy. This isn't the usual Ottawa press coverage I'm used to.
Yeah, and I think that same Trudeau came out a little bit today because he was discussing, basically what was happening is, I guess in Parliament they're trying to pass a motion, a bill, a payment, another federal payment just to everybody, giving money to everybody. But this time it was a good thing, right? It's a one-time payment for people with disabilities. I think it was $600, maybe $1,045. 45. I can't remember exactly how much money, but it was supposed to go to people with disabilities. But what ended up happening, it got held up because the Conservatives were what Trudeau said is that the Conservatives were still stuck on a debate that they had lost 2 weeks ago in the form of suspending Parliament until I think effectively for like half the year.
Just that little thing they're stuck on, that small issue of taking away the very thing that makes Canada Canada. In exchange, by the way, thanks to Jagmeet Singh, we literally traded away the most important thing in Canadian governments for 10 days of sick leave. So thanks for that, Mr. Singh. I really do appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing that really kind of upset me. I was getting mad watching it because Trudeau basically said, look, we had a debate in
Trying to be light here, fellas.
The
Come on.
Conservatives were on the wrong side of that debate. And that's why and it's just like, that's not really what happened there, buddy. It kind of sounded more like you had a backdoor meeting with Jagmeet Singh. You basically traded his 10 sick day thing so that he would vote in favor of suspending Parliament so that you could just lead from behind your desk and give these press conferences like a dictator.
Yeah, we're turning into a one-party state, at least for 2 months. And if you look at the Trudeau cabinet, I mean, I know we discussed this last week with how incompetent some of these people are. Patty Hajdu, the trust fund baby, Bill Morneau, who just doesn't know where he is. He has no clue where he is. If you look at him in Parliament, he might as well be lost. And he has to answer these questions. And they figured out this trick because you aren't actually forced to answer questions in Parliament as long as you say words after a question. And he's mastered it to a T, where Pierre Poilievre will shout at him and he responds, oh, well, you can send it to my office and I'll get someone to send you the stats. And it turns out they haven't even been doing that. So he keeps saying that in Parliament and they just didn't bother to send him the information.
Sleazeballs, man. These guys are all a bunch of these guys are a bunch of libranos, if you get what I mean. Like they're just like they're like a mob, and they get away with everything because they have a impotent, ineffective media in Canada that holds no one to account and doesn't seem to care really if anyone does anything wrong in government. I guess the only people that really put anyone to task was the Globe and Mail broke the SNC Lavalin story, but that kind of just disappeared like particles into the night sky. It became nothing. It was just a ghost. It was like a ghost of a scandal. And now everyone just forgets that whole thing happened. The blackface thing, I guess, too, and others. There's been, I think you were talking earlier about Mark Norman, right?
Yeah.
And what was that one again?
The Mark Norman case is extraordinary because it's almost more important than SNC Lavalin. But the reason why nobody cares about it and nobody knows about it is that it's kind of complicated and the press in Canada are useless at communicating what's going on in Ottawa towards the general public.
Yeah.
But what happened was there was an admiral in the Canadian Navy who was facing charges. The Liberals, or the PMO, had documents which would prove that this guy was innocent. But to save face, they withheld those documents. So this guy was going to go to prison if it wasn't leaked. And I forget who it was leaked to. I think it might have been the National Post. But it was such just overt corruption, as was SNC, by the way. SNC was just outright trying to get rid of the rule of law, which was it's pretty ballsy.
Yeah.
And again, it just doesn't stick. None of these scandals apply. If you look at the polling now, this guy's still getting unbelievable support from Canada. And it's because the mainstream media in Canada, the Globe, the National Post, the Toronto Sun, are failing us.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why they're dying and they're losers. And we're not losers.
Well, you know something. I do a lot of social media for TPM. And, I manage the Facebook page and stuff. And I was looking at our engagement compared to other news sites. So we have 1.3 million, right? Which is pretty good. I was looking at Toronto's Star.
1.3 million engagements. Yeah.
And the Toronto Star had engagements of like 300,000. Okay, and this is a huge company. They got sold for 54 million, right? Which is, tiny compared to what they used to be worth, but it's still a lot of money. They have a whole team for social media. The Post Millennial has 3 guys in their 20s, and we're out competing these guys because they're too lazy. And then they wonder why, we're dying. We need more support from the Trudeau government. Just employ a 20-year-old. It's all it takes.
Yeah, exactly. All it takes is you're not even 20. You're 19. You're 19. I'm in my 20s. We got a couple other people in their 20s. And it's just kind of we're young, and that I guess there's no virtue in being young, but it certainly does make us a little bit driven, especially when we're all angsty and have something to say. And we have a really great audience, I think, that does actually care about stories that matter. And none of the other places seem to really. There was a story that we ran about Serb scammers. Serb scammers that was available to everyone. No one ran it until hours after we did, and it was a story effectively about how there would be legislation, I believe, put in place.
Yeah, legislation. So $24,000 fine and potential prison time if you commit fraud on Serb.
Right.
Which is remarkable that wasn't put in place earlier.
Yeah, right. And so we didn't break the story. It was out there. We got it from a subscription-based site that we have. We put it out there on our site. No one else ran it, and it was one of our most shared stories, most liked stories. And the reason being, I think we all realized, is because everyone was sharing that to people they knew who were Serb scamming.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so as far as estimations, right? Because there hasn't been an official audit yet because the Trudeau government keeps rejecting it. But just estimations suggest that 1 million people have committed fraud on their Serb applications. And then finally, they submit a policy which would actually punish people for committing fraud, which, I can't believe it took that long. And again, I guess nobody saw what was going to happen with the pandemic. We didn't know how many people would commit fraud. I mean, some foresight would have been nice, but I guess, we didn't know the full extent of it. What pisses me off, though, is that the Trudeau government keeps printing money to give to just everyone, people who don't necessarily need it. And don't get me wrong, there's an obvious need for the Canadian government to help small business owners out, to help workers out who have lost their jobs. But giving $5,000 in one summer to students out of, your guys' pockets and Bobby and mine pocket as well is just so stupid and unnecessary. I know students, again, we just talked about it, I'm of their age. These guys aren't looking for jobs. They're spending it on booze and pot and God knows what else. Yeah. And it's coming, from your savings. And they just thought, yeah, it's fine. Everyone gets money. Why not? Let's just go to town on this stuff.
Especially exchange students. Are exchange students getting it? I'm not sure. I believe they must be. They can't.
God, I hope not.
I hope not, because Lord knows every exchange student is pretty much loaded. They have to pay so much money to even get here, to go to school here, that if it's so, I'm not even going to Google search that in case I lose my mind about that. Yeah, we got a really rich roster of federal leaders right now in Canada. We have Trudeau, who is this he's the luckiest man in the world. He's he's just unbelievably good looking. He's had a silver spoon in his mouth. He has a beloved prime minister. It depends where you go. Beloved prime minister, father, and now he's prime minister and gets away with everything. We have that guy. We have Jagmeet Singh, who is just like a communist from Toronto, and I don't know what his deal is.
Tailored suits.
He's a sharp dresser with a very pretty wife. That's all I'll say on that. We have Andrew Scheer, who, I don't know, drinks milk and stutters and smiles in this weird way where you feel like he looks like an elf that kind of just shit his pants. And we have Elizabeth May, who is once again, we might as well just start a segment just called Walrus of the Week, and it should just be Elizabeth May every week because she's awful. There's nothing good.
Oh my God. Well, she said something outrageous again. I think we're actually doing an Idiot of the Week segment, and our lovely producer, who's sort of listening in very patiently, is going to do a special banner. So let's hear that now. Perfect. Thanks, James. But Elizabeth May has once again come out, trying to get as much media attention as possible. She loves the spotlight. It's what she's there for. It's why she's still leader. She's leader for life. She stops the Green Party from growing past her. The Green Party is Elizabeth May. But moving on, she said today that the RCMP is institutionally racist. which is a pretty, sweeping statement,
Yeah.
I think is fair to say. And she said that after the RCMP commissioner, called Brenda Luckie, who isn't Bill Morneau's cousin. Let's make that very, very clear. That was a fake news from the Buffalo Chronicle, I think. But do you remember when everyone believed that for like 2 days?
Yeah, I remember that. Remember the Buffalo Chronicle? Those were the days, huh? The
I
hard-hitting
go on their
news.
site every now and again. They still like talk about, Sophie Trudeau's broken up from Justin Trudeau, and here's proof. And they just put like 10 adverts in it, so you can't get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, it was always the hard-hitting stories like, why did Justin Trudeau leave West Point Academy, huh? all that kind of like, we're not saying it, but but anyway, go on about Elizabeth May, our favorite walrus.
So she said that RCMP is institutionally. She held a press conference. She gathered Ottawa's eager journalists who are spending their time on this rather than anything that matters, and she told them rather sternly that, the RCMP is racist. And you know how I know that? Because when I was at a protest, when I was at a protest in BC protesting some pipeline, the RCMP arrested me and they were really nice. And then I saw stories. No, it's stupid as that. And if I got treated really nice and I've heard these stories about people being treated badly, then I know they're racist. And I shit you not, that was her entire thesis. And that's what the press conference, that deserved the press conference.
Wow. Yeah, she's I think you just said it, alluded to it there. She will aim for the headlines every time. I don't even know how much she believes in what she says. She's flip-flopped before on issues. I mean, I remember before she said that she was personally pro-life and that her policies would always stay pro-choice, because I believe she's a type of Christian. I can't remember what type of Christian exactly she is.
One of them.
But the type of Christian that doesn't believe in abortion, which should be, all of them. So anyway, she said that, but then she got attacked. It came up like years later in the last election. It was like, hey, you don't personally believe in abortion? You have to personally believe in abortion to be the leader of the Environment Party, dude. And then she was like, no, I love abortion, which is great.
Well, you know what really, really irritated me from the last election?
What's that?
Because the main focus of the last election was that Andrew Scheer personally believed in abortion, but in terms of policy, he would never, get the government to enact any legislation on it. And I'm pretty sure he even went as far to say we wouldn't support private members' legislation on the matter. Don't take me as gospel for that, though. But anyway, it's the same position Justin Trudeau has. It's the same, who by the way is a Catholic. It's the same position as Elizabeth May, who's one of the denominations. Let me guess, it's probably the Unity Church, whatever it's called.
Just like a Methodist or something.
Yeah. And yet, our wonderful media, all those guys who are on 6-figure salaries in Ottawa and spend their time drinking with politicians, focus on Andrew Scheer because, well, he's a conservative. He must be scary. He must be looking to repeal this legislation because, well, we know conservatives and that's what they do. And so no policy was discussed in the last election. Mm-hmm. It was totally about Andrew Scheer's personal beliefs, which, as I said, was the same as Justin Trudeau, which would never, ever interfere with any governmental policy. And I don't know how they get away with it.
To be fair, and let me play, I'm not even playing devil's advocate because I actually just believe this. That video that emerged where it was Andrew Scheer talking about gay people, I think it was.
Yeah, from like 2002 or something.
It was like from 2002. It wasn't really a surprise. We all kind of knew that's what Andrew Scheer thought.
Yeah.
But he gave this really weird analogy about a dog and its tail. And it was like, if you have a tail, it's a dog tail. And if like gay marriage, we have to have the tail with the dog. And it was just like this weird convoluted, like, just say you don't like gay marriage, dude. You don't have to confuse everyone in the House of Commons to get your point across. But I remember that was supposed to be a torpedo. The what was it? Him being American was supposed to be a torpedo as well.
Which Elizabeth May was as well, by the way.
Who cared? And then, I don't know, what did he do? He sent his kid to school with some taxpayer dollars.
Well, that's how he got forced out.
That's not good. I don't like that. I mean, that's pretty bad. But yeah, hold him to account, kick him out. That's fine. He sucked. I don't really like him.
Yeah, well, you know what? I have no idea why he's still leading the Conservative Party.
Well, no one does, and like you can see this pretty commonly on like Facebook. I follow pages like Six Buzz and all these kind of like Instagram pages. What a lot of young people follow it. Everyone hates it though. And every time Andrew Scheer speaks or on Twitter, it's just like, why are you still here?
Yeah,
you lost.
I don't understand why he didn't step down as soon as he announced his resignation. He's like, yeah, okay, guys, I'm going to resign. Fine, I get that you don't like me. However, I'm going to stay in the job for another 7 months or 6 months, however long it is.
Yeah.
But, there's so many popular Conservative politicians. If Andrew Scheer stepped down, why didn't we have Pierre Poilievre as interim leader? The guy's amazing.
Yeah.
He's a Chad. He's got a strong jawline. He's got a lovely wife. He's got a really cute kid. He knows the economy. He keeps Bill Morneau up at night.
Yeah.
And if this guy was leading us right now, we wouldn't be 10 points behind in the polls. And we are. And, we're struggling along. I think even the NDP are catching up to the Conservative Party. And it's all because of the milkman. Can't stop drinking milk. He can't stop smiling. I think at one point he had to take smiling lessons, which just reveals the sheer scope of his incompetence. And he's still leading the party. And we wonder why the Conservatives can't get elected. It's because we keep electing these weirdos to run the place.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens in the when the Conservative election wraps up. I mean, it's going to be somewhat interesting. I don't know. Peter MacKay looks like a goofball. Leslie Lewis seems kind of cool. I feel like I feel like she's going to do way better.
She's
than
gotten high marks. Really high marks. She's going to join the Conservative Party, I suspect, after the leadership election. And she's automatically going to get into the shadow cabinet. She's a really clever woman who's principled. And it's very refreshing, I think, to have someone like Leslie Lewis in
I would vote for her. I would vote for her if I was a Conservative Party member. Yeah. I think she's pretty competent and cool. And like you said, very principled. And I feel like she's going to do a lot better than people expect.
She's got a PhD. She's brilliant.
Yeah.
There's the type of candidates we should be trying to attract instead of, the guy from Saskatchewan who pretended to be an insurance broker for a year so he could get into Parliament.
All right.
God, I hope they don't watch this. I'd be in so much shit with the PMO.
I'm sure it'll be fine. No one's watching anymore. And if you're still watching, great, because we're about to get into some other topics. Our next topic of conversation involves the Trudeau cabinet minister who has something funny going on with China, of course.
I mean, just another chapter in the 10-volume book of the Liberals being weird with the Chinese regime. And it really is weird. And we've spoken about this before. And obviously we don't have time for everything. But this one is particularly strange. So essentially, we have this French guy, and I've got his name written down. It's François-Philippe Champagne, I think. And he's the foreign minister, which is a very important position. There's three, I suppose in this government, there's 4 important people. And he's in that. He's one of the most powerful men in Canada. Now, it turns out that earlier this decade, he was living in London. He was working for a big, a massive British construction company. And when he was there, he took a mortgage out to pay for 2 flats. Now, what's weird about this, really, really, really strange, is that he didn't go to any of the top 34 banks in London. He went with the 35th largest bank, which is, surprise, surprise, the Bank of China, which is state-owned, you guessed it, by the Chinese regime, Xi Jinping, and his Beijing buddies. So, what is dodgy about this, and why this has potential to be a huge scandal, is that to get a loan, or a mortgage rather, from the Bank of China, you have to actively seek them out.
Right,
or they have to actively seek you out. And no one takes a loan from them. I know London pretty well. I've never seen a Bank of China building, ever, in my time in London. In my time in the UK, in fact. So it's really, they had to actually seek him out. And what this means is that one of Canada's top government officials, one of Canada's most powerful men, one of the top people in the Trudeau administration, owes $1 million to the Beijing apparatchiks. And that's bad enough on its own, right? But what could make this even worse? And we don't know this yet. All we know is that it's really weird that he got a loan from them. We don't know what the interest rates were, but if they were amazing interest rates, then there's clearly been some sort of deal here. Now, the second interesting thing which may emerge, and again, I've got to be pretty careful here, and it hasn't yet emerged, but it may. Who knows what may happen? I don't. But if he renegotiated his mortgage whilst he was an MP, because he still owns these properties, right? So if he renegotiated his mortgage while he was an MP, he can effectively be accused of using his status as an elected representative of the people to get a really good deal. And there's no reason why he should be going there. So he must have got a good deal, right? He had 2 really nice flats in some very wealthy areas of London, and he was able to afford it. So it's very weird. And I don't know exactly what to think of it.
They can't keep getting away with this.
Yeah.
They can't keep getting away with this. How many scandals, how many Chinese government scandals does this liberal government have to be for everyone to just get on their collective anger of like, why isn't everyone in the streets about this? I mean, it's time and time again something to do with China, whether it's not calling them out over a pandemic, letting them stomp all over us in trade, taking our 2 Michaels away from us. We have 2 less Michaels. As I say all the time, Canada has 2 less Michaels. If I ever have twin boys, I'll name them both Michael so that we can get our Michaels back because of this Trudeau incompetence. And I will name them both Michael, I promise.
It's not necessarily incompetence, but what is strange, right, is that there are multiple instances. Firstly, when he refused to name Taiwan, so they asked him, like, are you going to thank Taiwan for giving us a bunch of surgical masks in the middle of the pandemic? And he pretended to know it didn't exist, or just sort of weren't even going near that name in fear, allegedly, his mortgage might be taken away.
Yeah, he thanked all countries, of course. You have to thank everyone for doing their part in the world.
Everyone, not Taiwan, every country. And then he's also said, and I don't have the quote here, but I'm going to paraphrase, but I'm not going far off what he said. He said that China and Canada, comparing the 2 countries, are both very open places, very nice places. You know, they're good people. They've got a good government. He literally said that. I suppose he didn't literally say it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And he did it when he owed $1 million to a Chinese bank, which is the Chinese state. You know, there's something really strange. And you know, let's pretend that he didn't mean to do this. There's no foul play going on there. Let's just say that's true.
Somehow.
He still is opening himself up for the Chinese regime to have so much leverage over him. And he's one of Canada's top men. How was this allowed? Why didn't Trudeau ask him about this? Because he says he included it on his ethics report, which he did. Why did nobody read that report and say, hold on a minute, you owe $1 million to China?
Yeah.
That might be suspicious.
It's true. And it's we see time and time again, and I think I've said it pretty much every time we speak, that China has a lot of leverage and they're power hungry. And they are at a coming of age point in the world's kind of economy. And it was actually Napoleon, a historical figure, I think I find pretty interesting, that he said, let China sleep, for when she wakes, the world will shake. It will shake the world. And boy, is China ever waking up and kind of just playing around with us like toys. Yeah. We were being
I'm
toyed
feeling
around.
The earthquake, man.
We're feeling the earthquake, man. It's really bad.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about what's going on. It's a cultural movement. It's not just in the U.S. It's kind of something that's been happening. You see in the U.K., in Canada now, the U.S. especially, and that is statues. Specifically, people tearing down statues. Doesn't even really matter who it is. It seems like there's been a couple that have been defaced in the U.S. and they're actually like slave abolitionists. Like,
oh my god, they defaced a monument, which was a monument to a black, like, I suppose, unit who fought against the South in the Civil War. And they just sort of presumed that it was something to do with racism because it's a statue. It must be racist. Yeah. And they defaced like a proper monument to racial equality in the US. And they defaced Abraham Lincoln. They are defacing... Yeah, they like put up pictures of Abraham Lincoln. You know, the guy who literally freed the slaves. And yet, you know, because he's white and has a statue, I guess we got to take him down.
Yeah, and in your home country, the old United Kingdom... They are defacing and knocking down statues of Winston Churchill, who Last
Yeah.
time I checked,
Well,
was
actually,
not a
the-
Nazi.
It was in Toronto. So there was attempts with Winston Churchill. And by the way, don't tell them about the guy Churchill defeated. But needless to say, Winston Churchill, was a pretty good guy. And in Toronto, there's a statue of him. And there was a video of a man with a sort of megaphone. And he was yelling. And I actually have the quote of what he said. He said, "Let's scream and tell that people that this is a horrible statue." So he actually said, "Let's go and scream and tell the statue how horrible it is." And this is a grown man. Don't they have work? They have something better to do, like kids or something. He was like 50 years old. Does
No.
he have like a wife to go home to or something?
No.
It's astonishing how everyone has collectively lost their mind.
Yeah, I think we talked about this last time. It's a reoccurring theme of people with no meaning in their lives attaching themselves to anything that comes close to them that resembles any form of hierarchy or any form of it's just something that provides them with a purpose.
Yeah.
Because you go to university to basically, I don't know, sell your soul to this kind of weird radical the West sucks kind of ideology.
Yeah.
Which it does. Look, the West has its issues. But it's sure a lot better than, I don't know, the East
Anywhere
or the
else.
North or the
Yeah.
South.
It's the thing. They are so intent on destroying everything that makes Western civilization a place that's nice, and they usually do it under the mandate that it's racist, and the whole Western society is institutionally racist. And we have a bad history. It's true, but where else is there to live? What else should we be aspiring to right now? I mean, I know we should always pursue justice, but they take examples of Saudi Arabia and say that's where Muslims are treated properly. It's like, well, yeah, but what about the women who live there? What about everyone else?
Hey, here's a question that because I'm having conflicted opinions on this one because, let me ask the question first. It's about a specific statue that got thrown into a lake, into a
Bristol.
river in England, and he was a slave trader. Lots of people are slave traders. I'm not defending slave traders, but what I mean is, if you're a historical figure from England or the United States, there is a chance that you own slaves.
Well, yeah, I mean, we profited immensely off the empire. But, so the statue in question, I think his name was like Edward Coulter or something. He was a very wealthy man. He was a slaver, and but he turned this money and he gave it to the city of Bristol. And it's why Bristol's a lovely city. It's very beautiful, and it's built off slave money. So are a lot of cities in the UK, by the way. Liverpool is also built off the money of slavers, and a few other places. However, I think, we have a democratic process to get rid of these statues. It's why we have democracy. There's councils that can go and do it. If we dislike the statue so much, and I think there's perfectly legitimate reasons to do so, then let's have a vote. Let's use the processes that we have to get rid of it. And let's store it in a museum because it's a work of art with a description about how this guy was bad. Let's not just take it down and throw it into a river and vandalize the city and burn it down and just hurt everyone, just make the place worse for everyone and just totally hide our history. That's not how this thing works. It's so silly.
Yeah, it's like a new form of book burning. It's kind of just a cultural erasure. And I don't understand what they want to replace it with. I've seen suggestions, these weird suggestions, people saying like, oh, put up like Yoda or like put up Anakin or like a Superman statue. Like everyone loves Superman.
Yeah.
And that just speaks volumes about what kind of culture we live in now.
Yeah, and it's very scary because you spoke about the book burning and we haven't got there yet. But already in Britain, we've had a wonderful show called Little Britain get removed because I think one guy wore blackface in it once in like 2001. We've got The Mighty Boosh, which is another really funny show. By the way, these are all comedies, right? They're making fun of this stuff. But The Mighty Boosh is another great show, and it's been removed off BBC iPlayer and ITV and all the main broadcasters. And when is this going to stop? Are we going to start removing books which has the N-word in it? Are we going to, for instance, get rid of Lolita because it's about pedophilia? Like, this is what books and movies are for. It's to challenge this stuff. And it's what they're doing in these books and movies, or at least to learn from it. And it's not how you solve racism. And it's remarkable that anyone else thinks it is. And you know what I think it is? I think it's all about appetite. They're in a mob. They're not thinking. They're just fueling their appetite for chaos, because that's what a mob is. And I honestly think if you remove a statue or if you vandalize a World War II memorial in the name of anti-racism, because that makes sense, you should face prison time. It's really shocking. It's hurting humanity. You're taking away things that are beautiful, and things that are beautiful make life good, worth living. They're real scoundrels, barbarians, and they should be. There has to be a strong debate. And I wish Boris Johnson, I like Boris Johnson a lot, would come out and say, "How dare you do that? We have democratic processes in place, and don't you dare vandalize the Centregraph. Don't you dare vandalize Winston Churchill. This man is good, and he did good things, and he should bring it onto the public debate. Because right now they're just rolling over for these crowds of these mobs of rioters, and it's really scary to see. It's terribly depressing. I'm depressed by the whole thing.
Boom, dude! Look at that. If that wasn't a tangent, then I don't even know what a tangent is, or maybe a rant. I guess I use tangent, but still, well said. And it's gonna happen more and more until it gets to a tipping point. We are running out of time, but just really quickly, you were saying, when does it end? I don't know. HBO Max has just decided recently to take Gone with the Wind off their streaming service. Yeah. Which, by the way, was I believe the first African-American actress to win an Oscar, won it with Gone with the Wind. So you're removing it's just shooting blindly into what people are calling racism and just trying to tear it all down. And for what? What are we replacing it with? It's like cultural Taliban. They're going through like ISIS and destroying monuments. Like ISIS. This is what ISIS does. ISIS goes into Syrian villages and they find their coolest building that's like 10,000 years old, and they take a shit on it and then tear it apart, because that's what they do. That's the same thing that we're doing here, and these people are so just brainwashed that they aren't able to see that they're tearing down the beauty and the good that we have going on here, and it's just sad. And I guess we're gonna have to end on that note. It's a little bit of a sad note.
It wasn't as optimistic and lighthearted as the last episode.
No, we started out so well. I felt like we were just a couple happy-go-lucky dudes, and we've been corrupted so quickly by the news cycle. It makes you cynical,
by world events. Yeah. But again, thank you so much for watching us. We really do appreciate it. Again, let us know what you think in the comments. We're sorry we didn't take any of your names. They weren't good enough. It's just a fact of life. Deal with it. And we hope you come back next week.
Absolutely, yes. Leave anything in the comments if you think we should touch on anything, or if we have any segments you think would be good for the show. We're very open to suggestions. We read every comment, and we go to bed thinking about it. We take it very personally, and we actually talk about it when we meet up with each other about some of the mean things that people say to us. So let us know in the comments, and give us a like, give us a subscribe if you haven't already. We're going to do these weekly. Thanks again for watching. This has been This Week in Canada with Bobby and Nico. Bye-bye.